Welcome to Ion Franchising, where you will learn the A to Z's of franchise. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising. I'm your host, Lance Graulich. So today, people ask me all the time, who is it that owns franchises? Like, what did they do before? They come from corporate America. How unhappy were they with their former careers? Well, today, let me tell you something. We have a powerhouse couple of folks that are both PhDs. Yes, both PhDs who jumped in the deep end with a franchise called Goldfish Swim School. Welcome to the show, Dr. Rachelle and Dr. Joe.
Thanks, Lance.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Joe and Rachelle. So ladies first, Rachelle, how did this all come about? How do two doctors give us your history, but how do you become franchisees?
Well, I was a nurse. I have my PhD in nursing. I'm a nurse practitioner. And my husband is an MD. And we had fantastic, wonderful working lives prior to becoming franchisees. I think for us, it was looking at our children and wanting more opportunity for them. It was wanting more independence in what we do, being able to actually work for ourselves. And of course, to develop a financial future for us that we felt that was going to be secure and that was going to be generational. And so fortunately, we, prior to Goldfish, own another brand. And so we were just wondering and looking at what were some business opportunities that we could get into. And we didn't know exactly if franchising was for us. Initially, Joe would joke about my cockamamie ideas, but I had many ideas about owning, whether it was a beauty salon or opening up some type of entertainment place for children. And it took us many years. We really looked at a number of options, and one day we decided we were going to just put in one of those contact forms to get a little bit more information. And the wheels just started turning. And the more that we investigated, the more we talked to our dear friends who either own franchises or own their own businesses, we recognized, there's some power in us. And especially at our age, we try to act like we're young, but we're older. And so for us, getting into franchising just made sense.
Got it.
Got anything to add, Joe?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think for us, and I'll talk a little bit about my background. So I am an MD. Rachelle's a PhD. I've trained in internal medicine, and for the past 20 years or so, been in the pharmaceutical industry. But we wanted to work for ourselves, one, and also we wanted to show our kids the value of hard work, and if you will, create somewhat of a legacy for our children, so that they have future opportunities and also that financial independence that Rachelle said. So that were the key reasons. Now, she did bring a lot of ideas to the table over the course of the past 10 years, many of which I scrutinized, and they were good, but I was really looking for something really solid if we were going to invest our time in, our energy, our effort, and most importantly, our money. So, but she didn't give up, and she found Goldfish, and I was excited about it.
I love it. So let's kind of go backtrack a little bit, because one of the most common sort of conundrums that people come up with is this kind of the intersection between, do I start something on my own based on something I already know, or do I create something new? Because, people want to get into the restaurant business. They think it's such a sexy business. I want to start my own cafe of some kind. Or do I even go the franchise route? And what is that about? So it sounds like after a number of years, you figured out, did you investigate a lot of different franchises? Did you seriously consider creating your own brand?
Well, I'll add, we thought about both of those. Rachelle had some great ideas about us starting our own business, and then she brought franchises to the table. And for the most part, I looked and did research into all of those avenues. She's a creative one. She's got all these wonderful ideas, and I'm the bolts and nuts numbers guy. So we have a great partnership there. But the value of a franchise is the structure and the planning and the processes have already been worked out by the franchisor. So there's incredible value, and what Goldfish brought to the table really enticed us from our first conversations. It's been really exciting.
Love it.
Yeah. And I would also add that when you go with a franchise, you're coming with a support system that's already in place. And that is huge, especially when, we've all gone through and getting through, some of us still, the COVID, and having the support of a franchise and a community to help us get through that, and knowing that you're not on your own was invaluable. And that, I would tell you, is one of the biggest benefits that we found at that very critical time of being part of a franchise.
Yeah, and I think that was the old Ray Kroc quote from McDonald's. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Exactly.
So let's talk about, tell everybody that's listening, for those that don't know who Goldfish is, Goldfish Swim School, describe for us what it is exactly.
Well, Joe, did you want to start?
I'll let you go. You're good.
You know what? Goldfish Swim Schools is the Cadillac, the Ritz-Carlton of all swim schools. So it is somewhere, I always put my perspective from being a mom. We want our kids to be safe in the water. We want our kids to be able to swim. And we also want to make sure that we have a community outreach there, so we can ensure that the kids in our community are safe. It is a swim school with very high standards. Jenny and Chris McHewson, if you have the opportunity to listen to their story, they wanted to keep kids safe, and they wanted to make sure that they had communities that were safe, and they continue to show grit and determination, and it is a brand that is as a thriving business. But again, I keep going back to, it impacts that community and keeps our kids safe.
Yeah, I'll just add, getting a franchise such as Goldfish, you get to make a difference. You get to make a difference in that community by the value of teaching these kids how to swim, and even potentially saving their lives or the lives of their friends. So that's what we're about. We really want to find ways to continue to make a difference, even though we're going into franchising.
Yeah,
I think people forget how significant or how important it is that you know how to swim. And I was lucky. My dad was a lifeguard. So, I mean, how many people's dad was a lifeguard? So he taught me how to swim. But, and I know you're in Louisiana, and friends of mine from Louisiana, there seem to be a lot of floods over there. So, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, God forbid, drowning is probably just the statistics out there. I've seen it on a regular basis is just outrageous. And obviously, in some instances, I guess it can be fixed or controlled, and in other instances, maybe not. But in this case, you have a proactive methodology to teach people how to swim, which is amazing.
Hey, drowning still happens. It happens all too often. Louisiana is an active water community. There's water everywhere. There's lakes. There's, of course, the seashore, and people swim. You mentioned the flooding, the weather, heavy rain, thunderstorms. So there's lots of exposure to water and possibilities of drowning. So making an impact there is almost essential to get that swimming.
Yeah, wonderful. And it's a brand that comes with the science of swim play. So they've put a lot of resources and efforts in terms of finding a fun way for kids to learn how to swim. And, the shiver-proof pool where, we keep temperatures so it's comfortable. We make it a very inviting environment that's bright for parents to really enjoy and to feel safe. Their training methodology for the lifeguards is impeccable. And so it's just, we're very proud to be part of the brand in all ways.
I love it. Well, you mentioned the Ritz-Carlton of swim schools. So now I get it. The shiver-proof pool, Do I get a logoed robe as well? No, we'll talk about that later.
Hey, I'll
So
just add, the NPS scores are fabulous because they value the customers. They really care about the customers. They care about, the kids they're teaching to swim, and it really shows in their interactions.
Yeah, and NPS, Net Promoter Score, for those that are listening that don't know the acronyms, that I didn't know it until a little while ago what NPS was. So thank you, Joe, for throwing that in there for people.
Well, Lance, I will tell you, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no.
I'll tell you the excitement. We are just truly excited to be part of this brand. And I have to say this, through the entire process, whether it was the discovery process, whether, it's now during build, they just live their core values day in and day out in everything they do. And when you talk about the customer experience, as as Joe alluded to, integrity, compassion, trust, and then again, getting extraordinary results. And at the end of that all, being able to celebrate. And, I can say those are the core values because they live it every day. And so can't say enough of what they're doing in order to make this brand what it needs to be for us to be successful and for us to also be able to make a little money on the way.
I love it. What about, so as far as the process, are you building your own pool? Are you renting pools? How does that go?
So the process involves, you find a location, you get a landlord, you negotiate that lease. Typically, you try to find a box or a building that's already standing there and not just, undeveloped site. But you do build a pool. They do come in and excavate, and there are certain standards that Goldfish has to make sure things are done properly versus taking over an existing pool.
Got it. So you have your own facility, which is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the process. So you found Goldfish. It sounded like you found them. Is that that the contact form you filled out?
Actually, that was the first franchise. This was a word of mouth. We had others in another franchise and also other franchise owners who also were just enthralled by Goldfish and actually referred us and said, hey, you really should look at this because they live their values. It's a mission-based franchise, and there's great opportunity there.
Love it. And let's talk about the process. So I tell everybody all the time, franchising it's a two-way street. It's like getting married. You both have to like each other. Nobody's swiping your credit card after the first date, so to speak. So talk about the first call all the way up to you guys signing. A lot of people don't know there's a franchise disclosure document, there's validation. Talk about the process that you went through and just tell us what you were thinking along the way as your boxes were checked, so to speak.
Okay, I'll start. So in the beginning, you have those initial discussions and phone call discussions as they get to know you. Interesting, Goldfish actually has a personality test assessment that you fill out to see if you're the right type of individual that can successfully lead and be a part of a franchise. Then the next step is to have a discovery day where you find out more about Goldfish, its core values, and what they represent, and the philosophy they have, and a little bit more about the company itself. From there, you actually sign that franchise disclosure document where you get lots more information, and then you can decide whether you want to continue and progress further. And after that, hopefully you get a franchise agreement. Then after you get the franchise agreement, then you work with a real estate company or broker, if you will, to find a location for you. And typically, the first location may not be the location that works, but sometimes it is. We were fortunate enough to find a location in the the recent past. And from that, you work with the landlord to have a lease. And from that point on, after that lease is signed, then you're going into getting that financing. You're going into preparing and onboarding with Goldfish, getting more information about Goldfish and how to run it properly, and just doing all the due diligence for construction after you get that financing approved. And then you go into the build phase. And there's lots of components of getting these swim schools built. And then hopefully you get through that process and then you have opening day. And that's all exciting. And then the real work begins when you welcome customers.
Time to jump in the deep end.
Yes.
Rachelle, anything to add to that?
No, I think Joe kind of gave it out to a T, because I was sitting here making notes going, is he going to forget that? And so he actually
Joe got it all.
He actually did a really good job, but I want to just reiterate the personality testing, because, you know, we had some discussions and they said, okay, well, here's some introductory things that we want you to do, obviously, to start the process. Obviously, they wanted to see our financials and so on and so forth. They wanted to make sure that we had the ability to, you know, inject the finances that we needed to, and the liquidity that we were supposed to have. But when they came out with the personality test, I thought, wow, this is really interesting. But I'll tell you what, I thought it was brilliant, because just as much as we were trying to know them, understand their brand, figure out if this was a good investment for us, they were still looking at us to see, well, are you all a good investment for us as well, right? Are you the people, are you a group and a family and a partnership that's going to come in here and keep this brand at the level that it needs to be at? And I thought it was brilliant what they did. And from a franchisee perspective, I thought, wow, you guys are really protecting the brand, which in that, you know, when you think about it, that protects us.
Absolutely. And, you know, because I've been a franchisee of multiple brands myself and have been in franchising over 25 years, it never ceases to amaze me how systemized things can get within a franchise system, because no one wants to make a mistake. And I can tell you for sure, I can't speak to how Goldfish does it, but I can guess what a lot of other franchisors do when they take these personality tests. They give those tests to their top performing franchisees, and they look at those scores and they wish and hope that the next group of prospective franchisees test similarly to the top performers, and they kind of do an overlay and go, oh, look at this. So it's kind of like predicting results based on personality if money weren't necessarily the factor. So I absolutely love it when I hear that, for the same reasons I think you do as well, is that, you know, because anybody can tell you whatever they want to hear in an interview or in a meeting, and people get fooled. But hopefully, you know, franchising is a lot of money involved on both sides, a lot of investment and time. So of course you both passed with flying colors, right, Joe?
Luckily, it worked out and we're here now. So we feel very fortunate.
Good. Perfect. Now, in the process, I didn't necessarily hear anything about validation. Did you have an opportunity to speak to existing franchisees to hear about their experiences? Is that part of it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
That was all a part of the process, and I apologize for leaving that out. And
no, I just want to make sure.
That's something we would have done regardless, because that's the type of people we are. We do our due diligence and we do the research online, through peers, through friends, and by going to actual swim schools in this case. So without a doubt, that was there and that was offered also.
Great. So let's talk about financing. At some point through this process, I mean, were you intending? What type of investment is Goldfish?
It could be a significant investment. Typical swim school, if I'm not mistaken, can go from anywhere from 2.5 to $3 million to have that from beginning to end, to opening day, if you will. And typically, the equity injection can be anywhere from 10 to 20%. More on the 20% side if this is your first franchise.
Yeah. So $500,000 plus.
Yeah, easily.
So when you and Rachelle were talking about it, I mean, couples, I mean, of course, you two get along perfectly, but not everybody gets along that well. So when it comes to money, was it, hey, I'm going to get an SBA loan? How are we doing this? What was your comfort level at that point with this investment?
Well, I did the research. I looked at the potential of the franchise, and we thought long and hard. And we know with risk comes great reward, and we know how hard we were working already, and we felt that this was a good avenue to pursue. Without a doubt, it is a substantial amount of money. But in the end, if you do your research right and you are able to find such a wonderful franchise as Goldfish, I truly think you'll come out ahead. And obviously, you got to work hard. It's not going to just come to you. We're not going to have opening day and be able to not work hard and do well. So we're all excited about this.
Yeah. And, we wish we had a rich uncle, like most people do. But unfortunately, we had to figure out how we were going to get the cash injection. SBA loan we needed to go there.
That's rich Uncle Sam.
That's rich Uncle Sam, exactly. And for listeners,
he does collect interest, by the way.
Yeah,
that's why he's rich.
Yeah, me and Joe, he has his lane, which is usually the financing, and he does the contracts and so on and so forth, right? I do more of the operations piece. But we had to sit down and look at our entire portfolio and identify, okay, where do we want to be? How do we want to leverage this debt? And so I think for new franchisees, you've got to be smart about it, right? You've got to look at all of your options, and maybe it is a rich uncle, or maybe it's a partner. We have many of our colleagues who are also franchise owners who they leverage partnerships and do very well with that. So there's lots of options. I think people just need to, like Joe says, do your research, educate yourself, and figure out what's going to be the best for you and your partnership or your family.
So such great information from both of you on all of this. And financing is a place that a lot of people get stuck because, like you said perfectly, Rachelle, they don't have a rich uncle. But franchising is set up nicely in that the SBA loves to lend. It's not a simple system. It's a little bit complex. It does take time, but it gives you the opportunity. I mean, I'll give people an example that are listening. On a $150,000 SBA Express loan that I helped expedite with a client recently, $150,000 SBA Express loan, all they put down was $17,000, but they had to have some working capital, 25, 50. I mean, it depends on the deal, but they had to have some of their own working capital because businesses get in trouble when they run out of capital. So I love that you shared your story on the financing side of things. So when you looked at the overall support as you went through this process and you talked to franchisees and you looked at the franchise disclosure document, it sounds like obviously you got a great comfort level. This is the brand for you guys because you did it. So talk about that. Talk about training, for example.
Well, I do. I'm more of the operations piece of our partnership. So support was huge to us. During the discovery process, we went and spent 2 days in Michigan and got to meet the entire team. They kind of laid down the process for us in terms of how are we going to become acclimated to the Goldfish way of doing. That's one of the positive things about owning a franchise, right? Is that sometimes with a franchise, because you get the cookbook, you don't necessarily have to come with that experience. They're gonna teach you that experience along the way. Right. And so we were able to speak with the senior leadership team. The training that they have is incredible. And I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, Lance. I really am. So I have to tell you.
Rachelle, you admitted you drank the Kool-Aid.
I drank the Kool-Aid. The process for us in terms of, prior to getting kids in pool, which is what we call for the grand opening. They give us an algorithm, and we meet with a representative, basically our project manager from the Goldfish side, every other week during the build process to keep us online. We use a program, Asana, that helps, tells us where we are, where we're going. We check it off. The training begins from marketing. We go to Troy, Michigan. We spend almost a week on in training to make sure we understand the marketing piece, we understand the swim school piece, we understand the maintenance piece, et cetera, et cetera. So they never take their finger off the pulse, and they ensure that we are trained. I will probably be very confident in saying that no matter what franchise you're going to go into, there's going to be some type of minimal amount of training that you're going to have to do in order to open up their brand, which is obviously very smart. But I think that they really do put the efforts into ensuring that we secure their brand. And I will say it again, we secure their brand. I feel that they secure us, right? They secure our business. It's been a great experience.
Love it. Love it. I love, again, the two-way street, the two-way street.
Yeah.
When it also comes to the collaboration with franchisees, sometimes people forget about that factor or that piece. And, getting to know other franchisees that are ahead of you in the process. Maybe they're open 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and they're already doing it. And it's not just another trainer or someone from corporate, as amazing as they are, is other fellow franchisees that you get to work with. So I'm sure that's something you'll experience at Goldfish if you haven't.
Yeah, and
we've already experienced that. There was a quote owner celebration or national meeting for all the franchisees a couple of months ago, and we were able to meet many franchisees with tons of experience, and it was great because there was actually lots of interaction time, lots of time to meet, socialize, network, and make those connections. And I will say I was thoroughly impressed. Everyone was open, sharing information, sharing contact details, and we've even been in touch with a few of those afterwards. So it's been a great process.
That's fantastic. That brotherhood and sisterhood is what I loved when I had franchises, because you're always going to find a few that become your besties in the business that you get to call each other on a regular basis. Hey, how is your labor so low and your turnover? I saw some numbers. And do you guys sign up for information sharing? We used to do that. Some brands do it, some brands don't, where my information, I was totally fine with sharing my info and how my performance is.
100%. It keeps us a little competitive as well.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. But, I can't speak enough about what you just said about the brotherhood or sisterhood in franchising, and a message to the listeners. If you go into franchising, and if you're in franchising, that is key in having that brotherhood or sisterhood, because at any given time, it's great to know that you can just throw out a text, pick up a phone, and have somebody, whether it's helping you through a situation or giving you some golden nuggets, right?
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. So what else? Final thoughts. I'm looking at my page here. We talked about core values. We talked about support. Let's talk about territory. How do they define territories at Goldfish? You got X amount of miles, X amount of population, X amount of people. Well, that's population.
Well, there's a research algorithm that they create, and in fact, it goes to the degree that they tell you within 3-mile range of where the best potential site is. And I was thoroughly impressed with that. But they actually look at the population. They look at the subcategories of the population. And this is a nationwide thing that's been done. And for the territory that you're interested in, they tell you where the boundaries would be and where the best location within that territory is.
Gotcha. All right, perfect. So territory was obviously important. Were you living in Covington at the time?
We were not, but we've had a strong interest to get back there. I am from that area of Louisiana and wanted to get back to Covington. So really excited about that.
Gotcha. Now, one other thing we didn't officially discuss, but I happen to know a little bit about this from our pre-discussion. When people get into franchises, there are a lot of people that are owner-operators. They're hands-on from the start. And there's others that come into a franchise that are, we call them semi-absentee owners, meaning they are going to do it part-time. It's a full-time deal, but they usually hire someone like a manager or a GM type that's also going through training. So where are you guys sitting at this point? I know in the long run, you want to be hands-on with everything, but where are you now? Do you have a team you're putting in place?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that you want to always look at when deciding on a franchise is that exact model. Is this something that I'm going to have to, be in there every single day? Am I going to be the owner operator, or do I have the flexibility to maybe begin and learn the business, and then maybe move back a little bit with the right team in place? And for us, having that right team in place is absolutely paramount. And so for us, because Goldfish is a new franchise for us, we're absolutely 100% hands-on. We will be teaching kids how to swim.
I love it.
Every aspect of the business. And the positive thing, again, from a franchise perspective, and having the support of a franchise, is to be able to possibly move back a little bit when we feel comfortable and we've had the ability to assemble that perfect team that we can trust and know that they have our back as if we are not present.
I love it. Yeah, and that is a big distinction or a big difference in across the franchise industry. There are brands that accept people as investor types that will be sort of semi-absentee owners, and there's other brands where they only want you if you're going to be a hands-on owner operator. And so I always ask people as a franchise broker, in my role, what is your role going to be? What are you going to be? What's your intention? And we have to find the right brand that fits. Obviously, there's quite a few investors, I'm sure, in the Goldfish model. It's a nice size investment and a great need, obviously, in every community in America. So final thoughts, final words of wisdom from both of you. We shared a lot of great information. I'd love to hear even more.
Well, I'll start first, and I think
ladies last. The good stuff last.
You know what? I know she's got some really good pearls of wisdom, so I want to go first and let her conclude. I think anyone who's on the fence with franchising or even considered it, look into it more. I think it'll be a wonderful experience for you. There are risks. It is hard work. All the good things in life happen with hard work. Sometimes opportunities are disguised as hard work. So look at it and, aim high. We're doing this because we wanted to create a better foundation, better life for our kids. And, we think we're taking the first step. So we're really excited about it. So I would suggest others do the same.
Love it. I just have to say, Joe, I don't know, when you mentioned the risks, I think I think you certainly know these are really calculated risks, because I'm sure you knew there was no doubt you're going to be successful in anything you do because of that grit that you and Rachelle have talked about, right? Is that fair to say?
Well, we knew we wouldn't go down without a fight. So to some extent, yes.
Good. Perfect. Rachelle?
Well, Joe stole some of my thunder here, because I really believe you've got to do your homework. You've got to know what you're going into full force. Get in there. If you're franchising, even if you're going to be absent and that's your model, still take the time and do your due diligence. Roll up your sleeves, or in our situation, put on a pair of swim trunks, and know your business. Know it. So that you run it and you are the person who's taking charge on it, and then move away. we got into franchising because we had some mentors, right? And some friends who own businesses and who made it seem and let us know that it was hard, right? I always say Joe and I grew up in a time when our parents told us, go to college. It's Black History Month. And so I'll say as parents who didn't get the same opportunities as me and Joe did, they wanted us to go to college. And we're super proud that they had a doctor and, he married a nurse practitioner with a PhD. That pride was there because that's what they expected of us. They didn't expect us to own businesses, right? It was, if I would have told my dad when I was 25, I want to be an entrepreneur, he probably would have said, just go to, finish college, go get your master's degree. So
What are you talking about?
So I just believe that we're at a point where we've got to share what we know. We've got to bring other people along. And maybe those people don't look like you, but we need to give a lot more people opportunities in this space as well. And as I go back to being a parent. As a parent, me and Joe, we've got two beautiful children. And if you ask our kids what they want to do, they're going to tell you. They want to be business owners. They've got ideas. They want to figure out how to market it. And is college college is not, not going to college is not an option. They
will go to college.
They will go to college.
They will graduate.
But as being in this space now, we're just able to share more about that entrepreneurial spirit. And again, whenever I can get my girlfriends together or I, find somebody on the plane who's trying to figure out what they want to do with their life, I always want to give them a piece of what it's like to be an entrepreneur. And so, share it, bring somebody along.
I love it. Thank you. That's a perfect way to end it. Rachelle and Joe, franchisees for Goldfish Swim Schools. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lance.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for listening today. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Lance Graulich. Until next time.